Well, Sabbath greetings to everyone. I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful week, and I hope you're settling into the Sabbath. I don't know when exactly you're going to be listening to this, but it is the Sabbath here because the Sabbath is still very early this time of year, but I hope it's been a great week. I hope it's a great Sabbath for you. Lots of exciting things going on around the area as we are still in the process of settling all these contracts and things, so we have a place to meet, but God is providing for our needs, and I do thank you so very much for your prayers in that regard, but He certainly is answering, and it's been a great week here as we prepare for, my wife and I have plans to, we kind of changed the schedule around a little bit. We plan on being in the Dells, Wisconsin Dells for services. We miss you all and look forward to seeing you there for the Sabbath, and then my wife and I have sort of a bit of a date night going on Saturday night. We'll be staying in the Dells area, but our kids will be leaving behind here to be taken care of by some wonderful, gracious brethren who are going to be kind of looking after them. But we look forward to being in the Dells for, we've got just something we're going to do Saturday night. We're going to take in a concert and spend some time together Saturday night in the Dells. So we're looking very much forward to seeing the brethren there and having that opportunity. And then, of course, early next week we'll have my younger brother from all the way from across the pond coming over here to visit with us for a few days. And so we're greatly anticipating them being here. They are in the United States at this point and taking in some other visiting and things before they get here, and before heading on to Kansas City to visit with the rest of the family. So we're gearing up for that and trying to prepare for all of the visit and also the traveling that we'll be doing to Kansas City very soon. I know you all have been watching the headlines, and there's been a lot more sobering headlines here lately. We had a couple of incidences in Australia. Of course, we understand that Australia is an Israelite nation, and they had this standoff there in the cafe with a couple of people ended up perishing there in that standoff, and they had all those hostages, and that was awful. And then just recently, I believe it was just in the last couple of days, horrifying headline, they found 8 children dead, little children, some of them not very old at all the way up to, I guess 12 or 13 or somewhere around in there. Evidently they've I guess at this point have arrested the mother of, I guess, 7 of those children. The mother of those children ended up stabbing them to death, and that's just horrific. And the 8th victim there was, I guess, part of the family as well. How sobering and how awful some of these headlines are. We see all these things happening, and we know that there's a lot going on in that sense on the world scene. It seems like it always is, and so we can understand 2 Peter 3, and we start reading here in verse 3 where it says, "Knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, Where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation." So, in other words, yes, we've heard all about this second coming. We've heard all about Christ coming back for so long, but yet things just continue to go on. We see these headlines and all these horrific things happening, and yet where is that promise? Things are they just continue to keep going on and on. But we understand that things are not going to continue to continue going on and on, despite what the scoffers say. And they scoff at the truth, they scoff at the prospect and the truth of a real God and a real plan and purpose for mankind. And those scoffers certainly, as it says here, will come in the last days. And so those scoffers are out there, and they're going to increase. And yet we see all these things happening. We don't want these things to continue to happen, and nor does God. But the Israelite nation is on, they're on a slide. And, it sounds like lots of fun. That slide is being greased at this point. And events and circumstances are going to continue to make that ultimate slide towards the Great Tribulation is going to speed up. As these events, we know these things that are happening the perilous times that we're living in, we know that the next few years are going to be very critical in setting the stage for the very end of the age. And so we may not be at the end, but we certainly could be seeing the end of the beginning, or certainly, the things that are happening right now, we can very easily say that they're setting the stage for those final end time events that we've been looking for so long. They're not going to keep going on in that way. I found it interesting. I looked up the definition. I'm a word man. I love to look up definitions of words, and I wanted to look up continue because it should be pretty, elementary. Continue, to carry on uninterruptedly a course of action, to persist in something. And so my question this Sabbath, are you a continuer? Believe it or not, that's listed there in the dictionary as a noun under continue. A continuer. Are you one that's going to continue on uninterruptedly in the persistence of this goal of the kingdom of God? And that's what we're challenged to do at this time as we see all of these events taking place. If you go to Luke, there's a situation here in Luke chapter 22. Luke 22 and verse 24. I think I'll start reading here in verse 24. There was also a dispute among them. So here's the disciples all gathered together, and they were disputing amongst themselves which one of them should be considered the greatest. And he said to them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those who exercise authority over them are called benefactors. But not so among you. On the contrary, he who is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he who governs as he who serves. For who is greater, he who sits at the table or he who serves? Is it not he who sits at the table? Yet I am among you as the one who serves. Jesus Christ set the example of servant leadership. He set that example for us. But he goes on to say in verse 28, but you are those who have continued with me in my trials. Yes, the disciples saw a lot. They saw all that Jesus was going through. They saw the tone and the way that those people wanted to kill him and murder him. And they didn't pick up on everything until they received the Holy Spirit, and then they understood a lot better. But the point is they continued with him in his trials. And of course, when that ultimate trial came, we know they scattered, but they were there. And he said, you have continued with me in my trials. And the exciting thing, brethren, the exciting thing is that we are those who must continue in our trials, but also understanding that he's going to be with us. He's going to be with us as things continue to slide in this country and in the other Israelite nations. He told them, you have continued with me in my trials. And now he's in a different position, isn't he? He is at the right hand of the Creator, and we have a relationship with him. We have his Spirit in us. His Spirit is dwelling in us, and that gives us the opportunity to persist, to continue, to be a continuer in this way of life. And he's going to be with us, and we must never forget that he's going to be with us. He's going to carry on and continue with us. In Acts chapter 2 and verse 41, Acts 2 and verse 41, and those who gladly received, here's all these people being added to the church, those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them, and they were continuers steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread, and in prayers. So that's exactly what they did. They were continuers. They continued steadfastly. And look at those areas. Here's where we need to ask ourselves when we think about living in these perilous times and living in the times where it's going to be, there's going to be an increase in trials and things of that nature. But we need to ask, are we continuing steadfastly in these four areas that we're talked about here? In the doctrine, we stick to the truth. We don't compromise the truth, but we're steadfast in the doctrine. In fellowship, the fellowship that we have is through the Spirit of God. And we continue in that kind of spiritual fellowship with one another. And the breaking of bread, being hospitable, spending time together when possible. We had a very, very productive and wonderful planning meeting, and I hope you're all excited about some of the plans we have coming up for this next year. You'll be hearing about them very soon, and the announcements that we're going to be making here before too long. And we've got some exciting things planned, and all of us are going to have the opportunity to fellowship in that way. And also in prayers, to continue steadfastly in prayers, praying for one another, and really going above and beyond in our prayers in that way, for the work and for one another. And so that's the question we can ask this Sabbath. And are we continuers? Are we ones that are going to go on steadfastly all the way and endure to the end, and have those positions of rulership that Jesus talked to his disciples about, who went on to be apostles, ruling over the 12 tribes of Israel in the kingdom? Those positions are taken, but there are plenty of others for us, and we want to continue to remember that and be continuing steadfast in the faith. I love you all. I hope you have a fantastic Sabbath, and I look forward to seeing you all in the weeks ahead. Take care and have a tremendous Sabbath.